WMEL.
It's the Talk to Me Network on AM 1510, FM 99.9, 94.7, and 100.7. The views expressed on the following program are those of the hosts, callers, and guests, and are not necessarily those of WMEL staff, management, or advertisers.
This is Joe Steckler, folks, your host for Helping Seniors, the radio arm of Helping Seniors of Brevard Incorporated. Our job is to educate, inform, and connect seniors and those that care for seniors with the resources they need in order to age with dignity. In many cases, just to live. You'd be surprised at some of the very, very simple services that seniors need as they grow older, and they're becoming almost extinct in certain parts of our country. And we're going to talk about that a little bit during the show today. But if you want to get a hold of Kay, the information specialist, and she's back off her vacation, her phone number is 321-473-7770. Call Kay, and she'll do what she can to help you. I remind everybody that we have a lot of sponsors, and I try to mention almost all of them every show I do, because they're the people that are all, in most instances, directly connected with helping seniors. The Eye Institute, Dr. Lee Sheldon, Zahn Beachside Assisted Living, Ebony News Today, Riverview Resort, Brevard Chiropractic, Cobblestone Real Estate, and Marker Street Memory Care, as well as Senior Scene Magazine. And my panelist today, Bill Johnson. Bill is an elder law attorney, and he's been with me on the radio and our TV since almost from the very, very start. So of all the panelists, Bill, I guess you're the longest with me.
That's scary.
Right. But Bill sent some questions over, and before we even talk about either one of the things that Bill and I we wanted to talk about, I asked Bill to talk a little bit about the fact that this is Older American Month, and it's important that we all realize exactly what Older American Month is, how it got started, who started it, and even the president, and some of us don't say many kind things about it. He did something to reintroduce the Older American Act in 2017, which people need to know. Bill?
I don't know the answer to that.
You don't know the answer to that?
No.
In 2017, President Obama reauthorized the Older American Act that President Lyndon Johnson signed into law in 1965.
See, I learned something today.
Yeah, you know how I learned that?
No.
I learned that from something you sent to me to read. So I read what you send. So why don't you read what you send out to me so I can get informed?
Because I like to follow the lead of our legislators and not read anything that I look at.
Oh, come on. Well, you might have a point there, Bill. You just might really have a point. I worry about it because, folks, I'm not going to, when you get in a public limelight and people listen to you on radio and television, you can't always say what you'd like to say to let people know what's going on. But a lot of times I read things in a paper, and what you're led to believe, it's not really the way it really is. And that's very, very discouraging. And when I see that, I try to call out the people that write the articles in a nice way, and because a lot of times the people that put these articles online and on Facebook and all this stuff and in the newspapers, they're doing the very best job they can. In fact, they just don't have the best information that they need, Bill.
I would agree with that, and it probably is getting worse because most newspapers have had to cut back on their staff. So a lot of times they've got to take what somebody else's word for events are, and that's going to get tougher and tougher.
Well, I wasn't really aware of that. I had a wonderful meeting recently with Jeff Keel, a publisher of Florida Today, and Bob Gawarty, the editor of Florida Today, and Carrie Fink and I went, and we had a long meeting. In fact, we had a meeting that lasted just about an hour, and Mr. Keel and Gabordi listened to what we had to say, and we listened to what they had to say. And you're right. Even the newspaper people brought out the fact that, newspapers don't have the same size staff that they used to have years ago, where people were really reading the newspaper every morning with a cup of coffee. And when I used to work in the Pentagon, that was the first thing I'd see, people reading the newspaper. Instead of doing their work, they're reading the newspaper. But I guess for many people, that was their work. But it brings home the point that we really need to do the very best we can to find out about anything we attempt to buy, anything we attempt to purchase, services we attempt to hire people. Because we get a lot of people that ask us about attorneys and where should they go. And, we've worked with you primarily in elder law, so I have no qualms about mentioning your name if somebody asks me about where they should go, because I've and the whole time I've met you, and I'll say this on the air, open mic. I've never had a client that went to you and came back and told me that he was dissatisfied with things you've done for him, Bill.
Oh, I appreciate that.
And I don't mind saying that, because I think that's the purpose of having a program. That's why we're trying to build these sponsors. We're up to probably almost 38 sponsors, I think, now for our programs, and we try to put people together like attorneys and dentists and doctors and plumbers and garage door opener people, lawn people, service people, roof people, because seniors can get hammered so easily if they don't
have the right person.
Yeah, you got to have the right person. But one of the things that you had wanted to talk about was beyond the fact that this is Older American Month, folks, and really there's a lot going on in the paper right now about, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on. I want to give Bill a chance talking to not just me, but you wanted to talk about this electronics will stuff, Bill, and I think that's wills are something that a lot of people have different and varying opinions on what they need, what they should do, and what they shouldn't do. But how does the electronics will fit in with all this other stuff?
Well, interesting thing. Most people probably don't even know or have never even heard of this electronic wills bill, but there is a bill, and it's moving through the House and the Senate, and it would allow a company, kind of like a LegalZoom company type thing, to have somebody be able to sign their will in the presence of the witnesses and the notary, who all could appear via one of these services like Skype. So you could sit in your house and say you are electronically signing your will, which means you do something with the keyboard to put your electronic signature on the document, and then these people would be viewing you, your witnesses would be viewing you through some sort of like Skype-like TV service,
right,
where they could see you and you could see them, and then they would affix their signatures electronically, and the notary would affix theirs. And the problem with this particular bill, and this is the brainchild of a company down in South Florida that wants to be able to store these wills, and they're going to charge people to keep them electronically stored in digital format, and you would pay them some sort of fee, and they would be the custodian of those wills. And if you wanted to change it, you could go back online and go through this whole thing. But you wouldn't have to leave your house to sign it. And as you and me know, one of the problems with that is, if you're not leaving your house, is who's in your house with you? Is it your one son who loves to take your money, and is he telling you need to get online and do a will and leave everything to him? So the opportunities for people to exert coercion, duress, and fraud especially when there's nobody in the room with the testator, is enormous. The other thing is when people come to me to do a will, one of the things that I am able to do is give some sort of assessment of whether or not the person has capacity. There is a checklist. There's a famous case called the Carpenter case where it talks about things that are undue influence. And then, I know the legal standards of what denotes capacity in order to do a will. And I can go through you whether or not you know who your heirs are, the nature and extent of your estate, and how you want to leave it to these people. So I can go through that. But when you're doing this online, nobody is, physically or personally assessing it. Now, in defense, everything's going to be recorded, but that still doesn't really show the true picture. And there's a reason when you go to a lawyer's office that they don't record the will signing, is because when you record everything, that can also work against you.
How can that, Bill?
Well, let's just say you're perfectly fine. You go in and you're going to sign your will, and by accident you thought it was May 3rd, but it's really May 2nd. Okay? And so you go to sign your will, and then you go in the middle of the signing while you're being recorded. Oops, I put the wrong date on there. Well, somebody could construe that you...
Mental capacity.
Yeah, you got some sort of forgetfulness going on. You didn't know what day it was, and you know how things could easily, quickly, and especially if you have somebody who may be borderline, it can really snowball on you. So there's a reason there are people who video record will signings, not a lot, because it could be your own worst enemy in a courtroom situation.
How long has this process been put forth? How many years?
Well, the interesting thing is this particular bill has not been run through either the elder law section or the real property probate section of the Florida Bar. This is something that was submitted through the company and the industry who wants to get this through. And my guess is they gave the legislators a lot of money to get this through, and it's being pretty much rushed through at this time. However, there have been, the two groups I just mentioned have been looking at this and have raised some red flags. So we may have maybe get a work group together over the summer to look on how to improve this and put some safeguards in there for seniors, because I can't tell you, these online services, people go to them and, they think it's great. They don't have to go to a lawyer's office, and they can do their documents for a fraction of the cost. I get these documents in my office, and I can tell you half the time they're done wrong. Either they're put together wrong, or they're executed wrong, or, there's problems with them. And if you don't know what to look for, you wouldn't even recognize that.
Well, folks, what Bill is talking about right now, I can perform personal witness to that, because I was asked to accompany a person to their will signing in preparation of their documents at Bill's offices, and my wife and I took him over there, this person over, and your staff member, Bill, you did a will, you did a power of attorney, you did the healthcare service, and you did something else. But more importantly, your staff, she must be your paralegal. She went through and explained to the person everything that he had to put his initials, explained why we did this, why you did that, and it was a very informed, I use the word interrogation, but that's not the right word to use, but and she made a comment to the gentleman. She told me, she says, you were very well prepared, sir, because he said, well, I try to be. And we know the gentleman, and we know that he does try very hard to make sure he understands things. He's older, and he has severe sight problem.
Well, let's talk about that. You know, when you do one of these power of attorneys through an online service, you know, you may think that, okay, I'm naming my son to take over the management of my assets if I become incapacitated. But you may not realize that once you sign that, they can sign your name anywhere. There's no as soon as you sign that, now they have the power to sign your name everywhere, even though you're not incapacitated yet.
Why is that?
Because durable power of attorney is effective upon signing in Florida.
Is that not the case?
It's not contingent upon you becoming incapacitated.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, so when you sign one of these, you just gave the power to somebody to sign your name. Now, if you're doing this online, there is nobody there to say, hey, you may not want to give that out yet. You know, keep it in a safe place, and then if something happens to you, let somebody know where they can get their hands on it. But if there's nobody to tell you that, and you hand this thing out, you may have just turned the keys to your kingdom over to somebody else.
Holy smokes.
So,
is it like that in all the states or just in Florida?
It's like that in Florida. I can't speak to the other states. In Florida, for a little time, we had what's called a springing durable power of attorney, and that is one that would not take effect until you became incapacitated. And then a doctor would sign an affidavit that you're incapacitated, and then the person could use the power of attorney. And the problem with that was we could never get the doctors to sign the affidavits.
Okay, but now what you and I are talking about, let's say, if I wasn't aware that it's effective as soon as it's signed, but still, does a person have to have the original of that durable power of attorney with them if they're going to use the power of attorney?
Usually you can use the original. Sometimes you can get away with a copy as well.
You can?
Yeah.
But they're just so... See, you know, of all the times that we've talked about estate planning, financial planning, and everything, all our TV and radio, you've never made that comment that I can remember that says that thing is effective upon signing.
So to tie it all back together with this electronic wills, because the bill does allow you to do power of attorneys the same way. So can you imagine if somebody's in there and turns the screws on their parent and says, oh, you're going to give me power of attorney here, sit in front of the computer, and da-da-da, and here we go. Boom, you sign the power of attorney, and next thing you know, they're off and running with the document.
Which leads us to another point in what we're talking about, not only just with powers of attorney, but any document that a senior citizen is asked to sign, no matter who's asking them to sign it, whether it be a family member or anybody, there's so much fine print to that darn thing, Bill. It's not only is it hard to read, the darn stuff is hard to understand.
Correct. And the reason for that, in Florida, our statute says if you don't specifically give somebody a power, they don't have it. So they tend up ending, they tend to be like, I think mine's 18 pages long. I looked at another attorney's, and his was like 30 pages long. It's a lot of boilerplate because we have to give you every sort of power we could think you could possibly ever need. So if you have a power of attorney, a durable power of attorney, and it's 1 page or 2 pages, it's not going to work.
You're in trouble.
And I say that because people move to Florida from states like New York or Illinois, where the power of attorney is a 1-pager or a check-the-box format. And those will not work in Florida.
And this keeps coming up. It's come up all the time that we've been doing these shows since 1995. And we find... Okay, well, that's 22 years, and we're still finding cases where people are doing it the wrong way.
Right. And the poor thing is that the client, the consumer, has a document. The top of the document says durable power of attorney, and they think they're covered. But not all durable power of attorneys are created equally.
Oh, that's why, because each one of them is different.
Correct.
And you have the boilerplate's the same for all of them, isn't it?
No, the boilerplate's different even. Yeah, I've seen documents that are durable. They claim to be a durable power of attorney, and they're not even a durable power of attorney. It'll say, to be a durable power of attorney, in the body of the document, it must say that this document shall not be affected by the subsequent physical or mental disability of the maker, or something to that effect. Okay? That's what makes it durable, makes it survive the maker's incapacity. I've seen durable power of attorneys that says durable power of attorney. You read through the body of the document, and it doesn't even have that clause in there.
So
it's not even durable.
If it doesn't have a clause, it's not durable then.
Correct.
So the whole thing could be thrown out.
Yeah. Well, what would happen is you wouldn't be able to use it. And of course, you go to use it once the person's incapacitated, and that's the wrong time to find out that you can't use it.
And so if if the spouse becomes incapacitated and the person needs to get money out to take care of their needs and everything else, they can't do it.
Correct.
So this is, folks, what Bill and I are talking about is something that, whether we want to believe it or not, it happens darn near every day. And you have something you want to add to that? Well, I just say every day, you're going to make it worse.
I was going to say it happens all the time. I see it weekly, where somebody comes in with a document that isn't going to work.
Wow, there's just so much. We've got several things we want to. But the one thing I didn't realize when I put it down, when I read the thing down, electronic will bill. And I wasn't looking at it. That's a bill that's before our Florida Congress, right? Our Florida legislators right now.
Yes.
Is the National Association of Elder Law Attorneys opposing it?
Yes. The National Association of Elder Law Attorneys has opposed it. The Academy of Florida Elder Law Attorneys has opposed it. The Elder Law section of the Florida Bar and the Real Property Probate Trust Law section are opposing that.
So that should give people an idea that it's not a good thing.
Correct.
Okay. All right, we're out of time. But folks, we've got 5 things we want to talk about on the second side of the show. Please stay with us because I think you'll enjoy it because there's a couple of them that affect you directly. Stay with us.
WMEL.
Lillian McDermott, weekdays at noon on AM 1510, FM 99.9, 94.7, and 100.7.
This is Joe Steckler, folks. We're back live with the second half of the show with Bill Johnson. I just want to remind everybody that Helping Seniors was designed to educate, inform, and connect seniors and those that care for seniors with resources. And our information specialist, Kay Kaiser, can be reached at 321-473. Excuse me. I'll say the number again, 321-473-7770. She took a few days off and stuck Carrie and me with answering the phone, but now she's back and she's paying the penalty because she had to call all the people up and find out what they really wanted because we didn't do a good job of answering them. I'm only kidding, but Kay did follow up and make sure that everybody gets what they need, and that's the one thing that we always promise you folks. You call us, we'll call you back. But some of our sponsors on this part of the show include, I mentioned Seniors Seeing News before, Hometown News, the newspaper Seniors Helping Seniors, Courtney and Browsville Financial Group, Barbara McIntyre, Home Equity Specialist, Canadian Meds of Melbourne, Ear Care, Vitas Hospice, Aldea Today, and Veterans Realty of Brevard. We have also a new one, Pit Crew Roofing, and we got several other new ones that I'll be announcing next week. But what it amounts to is, folks, that more people are joining our senior care network. And it's just like anything. We run a business. I do my work because I really believe in the program, and I'm trying to sort of move myself back down a little bit and get Kerry Fink, who is our new executive director, get him back up on the steps so that you see his face out there more. But we always have to figure out how we're going to pay for this stuff, and I started a car raffle the Alzheimer's Foundation does, and I know that a car raffle run the right way can not only make a lot of money, but it can be a lot of fun, and the people that win the car can certainly enjoy it. And I started out with A.J. Hires many years ago, and we were having a little difficulty getting something lined up, so I called A.J. again a couple of weeks ago. And A.J. said, come down and talk to me. And he said, there's your car. I said, A.J., we can't afford that car because I wanted to purchase something from him, and something not as expensive. And he said, that's your car. And he said, I want you to use it as from my personal collection. He says, I'm giving it to you. He said, I want you to use it to help seniors. And he said, help raise money so that you can make sure your program continues, because he said, I believe that the program does help people. He said, I've known you for many years, and he said, I want to be a part of what you're doing now. So, folks, you can go to our site, helpingseniorsofbrevard.org, and you can see a video of the car, as there's something like 57 pictures there. They give you a pretty good idea of what the car really is. It's a 1951 Ford Victoria 3-speed transmission hot rod. It was a custom car that they used for many years in hot rods. It's got the old side searchlights on it. It's gorgeous. It really, really is. Now, it doesn't ride like a brand new Cadillac, and that's not what it's designed to be. It's a hot rod. And it's got glass mufflers on it, so it's good and loud. You know it's coming down the street. So, but take a look at it. We'll be mailing tickets out to certain people if you want to be part of our campaign, and I hope that you will. Go on the site, take a look at it. But let's just talk about what we haven't talked about on the first part of the show, Bill, because we're talking, really today we're talking about some new legal issues, a legal update. There's some things happening on the first part of the show. We talked about an electronics will bill that's going through our legislature right now. The one thing that I'm interested, because you wanted to talk about this, was the guardianship bill. And I'm really interested in that because I think we're just starting to wrap our arms around the guardianship problem, and now you're going to probably tell me that we got to extend our arms and make them longer to wrap them around something bigger.
No, not that much.
Okay, but what does the new guardianship bill do?
The guardianship bill that is or getting passed is basically just some fix-its. There were some things in the guardianship statute that needed to be fixed, and the Real Property Probate and Trust Law section of the Florida Bar put together some legislation to do that. There was also a guardianship bill that was they got the Office of Public and Professional Guardianship up and running, which is a agency that will deal with not only public guardians but professional guardians. So if you have a complaint against a professional guardian, you can file a complaint with this agency. And
wait a minute, is that something new then?
Yeah, that got up and running July 1st of last year.
Okay.
And they just finished coming out with their final regulations, which will show, or which are the standards for guardians to operate by, kind of like a code of ethics.
Okay.
And so if the guardian breaches that, you could file a complaint against the guardian with the Office of Public and Professional Guardianship. One of the things that is in this new bill that they've offered is that the names of anybody filing a complaint would be kept confidential, as well as, of course, the names of the ward, that is the person under guardianship.
Okay.
But the names of the professional guardian would still be public, even if they hadn't found any wrongdoing.
That doesn't seem right.
Yes, so we were proposing some legislation that would have gone back and kind of expanded that coverage, that the name of the professional guardian would remain confidential until there was some sort of finding of wrongdoing. And what it turns out is you really can't do that. You can't make an exemption until the law has actually been enacted first. So they got to enact this law first, and then next year we can come by and make an exemption for professional guardians.
So for a year, people are going to get tossed out there in the winds when it may not be wanted to be there.
Yeah, I don't think the agency will go ahead and do that on purpose, but the prospect is still out there.
But was this the first time they've had anything in the guardianship legislation that gave you the opportunity to file a complaint?
Well, no, that was last year's.
Last year's.
Yeah, we created this office.
But that was the first time something like that had been in there.
Correct. We've now got this all together.
So what you're saying is that just like with the electronics will bill, now the guardianship bill, you guys are continually looking at these things to try to fix the things that are wrong.
Yes, trying to tweak them and fix them. So next year we'll be proposing some legislation to make it such that professional guardians' names would not be available, would be kept confidential unless there was a finding of wrongdoing, in which case they would publish that.
Since you're one of the very, well, not very few, but the only board-certified elder law attorney in Brevard County, does the fact that you're up on things like up on the step on stuff like this, have you found things that that the attorneys in the profession have tried to change that would sort of turn the tables the other way instead of improving something? Have you seen things happen where they regressed?
Well, you could make that debate for the guardianship. Guardianship law, most of us thought was fine the way it was, or at least practiced in Brevard County. I think they were having maybe some issues down in South Florida with some items, and generally what happens is when they have issues down in South Florida, then we have to go to the legislature and get that repaired, and of course then that affects the whole rest of the state. So I think some of these issues that have been concerns occurred in South Florida. Some of it was over in the Tampa area. And, generally speaking, we didn't see any of that here. Sometimes the tail wags the dog.
Just from our current structure of roughly 14 or 15, we have 19 million people in the state of Florida now, right? 19?
I
think it's 19 million. According to the diversity and the makeup of the people in the state of Florida, I would expect that there would be some variances in different parts of Florida.
Oh, yes. There are variances. And also, how the law is practiced in different parts of Florida is different, too. Florida is divided up into districts.
Right.
You have judicial circuits,
right.
And then these circuits compose a district. And if you have a problem in your circuit, you can appeal to the District Court of Appeal. And then if you don't like the way that turned out, you could try to appeal to the Florida Supreme Court. Well, the districts rule on different issues differently. So
I was waiting for you to say that.
Yeah, so sometimes you have differences between the districts, but a lot of times you just have differences based on local rules. And just, practicing law in Brevard County is a lot different than practicing law down in Miami-Dade. I mean, it's just, the nature of the beast.
It's differences in the makeup of our people here.
Yeah, I mean, in South Florida, they have dedicated what they call probate courts that, handle probate and guardianship. Up here, we just kind of rotate that through judges.
Through all the judges?
Yeah. So it's not a dedicated group of individuals who are hearing every probate and guardianship case.
It would seem to me like it would be easier to get through a probate process in Brevard County than it would be down in Miami-Dade.
It could be, yes. It could be.
Yeah. For the reasons you're stating. Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
Right.
Another thing goes to one of the things that you wanted to talk about, and I'm very interested in this myself because I read some other stuff about it, and this is called the nursing home opt-out. What is that?
Okay. Well, in Florida, we have what's known as the long-term care managed care program,
right,
under Medicaid. So that is the program that handles supplying Medicaid services at home in an assisted living or at a nursing home. Well, you can imagine having a company trying to supply services to you at a nursing home. We're just, the nursing home's going to do that. So the nursing homes we're under the general impression that why are we bothering to be included in this when we could just go back to the way it used to be, where the state would pay the nursing home directly instead of paying through a third party. One of the
On the four of the
HMOs.
HMOs, okay.
Yeah, the Coventry, United
Coventry,
Healthcare,
United, okay.
Humana, and
Right.
Sunshine. So they wanted to opt out. So there's a big negotiation going on about whether or not they will be allowed to opt out. And quite frankly, I'm not sure. I've been so wrapped up in electronic wills that I'm not quite sure where we are on that negotiation. I know that same thing is happening in Ohio, too, where the nursing homes are trying to opt out of these big, what we call super waiver programs.
I read that, and also some of the other states, but all these states are trying to opt out of the nursing home thing for different and nursing home care for different reasons, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that in many places, in New York, rural areas, Wisconsin, Minnesota, they simply don't have enough medical staff to take care of the people in the nursing homes.
That could be too. Yes.
And the reason for that is they don't want to pay them enough.
True.
And
there was a big fight in the budget also going on where they wanted the Medicaid HMO companies to be able to negotiate separately with nursing homes instead of having to pay a nursing home their stated Medicaid rate. So most people don't know this, but nursing homes have a stated Medicaid rate. So if you're in a nursing home on Medicaid, that is what the patient's income plus Medicaid will equal that rate.
Right.
Which is usually lower than their private pay rate.
When their private pay rate is, and that's why that.
Now, if we allow all these different companies to negotiate different rates, it's really going to hurt nursing homes.
It's going to chaos.
Yes.
Because, Lord, that'll add another whole new dimension to everything we're talking about, Bill, if we do something like that.
If they do something like that, you'll see the quality of care nosedive at nursing homes. And the nursing homes are fighting this tooth and nail, so.
So, what are the pros and cons then of the nursing home opt-out?
Well, the other, what the, who's arguing for the nursing homes to stay in Medicaid? That is the HMOs, the Medicaid provider companies.
Okay.
The big insurers, the Humana, United Healthcare, Coventry, Sunshine State. They want nursing homes to stay in, and the reason for that is they get paid a fee for case management for every person in their program who's in a nursing home. So they're getting some money out of that if nursing homes stay in. Nursing homes don't like that because they feel, I believe they feel, the case managers aren't doing anything. So why are we paying them a fee? We're doing all the work.
So when you get in, this is the thing that's hard to discuss in a short period of time that you and I have on the air today. But when you get into the managed care, this Medicaid managed care is paying for nursing home care, is paying for daycare, is in some cases it can be used to pay for assisted living.
Correct. And I don't think most people know, but over 50% of patients at a nursing home are on Medicaid.
I know that.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a fraction. It is the vast majority of the people at a nursing home are on Medicaid.
Yes, and if the problem with that, Bill, is if they can charge, if they can get a private pay rate of $9,000 and Medicaid limits them to $5,000, and if more than 50, if the state requires more than 50% of their people to be Medicaid patients, they can't pay their bills.
Correct.
And this is another thing that people don't understand. And you don't see that when you read the papers in the article.
What happens when they can't pay their bills? They got to cut other ways. And, of course, care goes down.
But if they try to cut staff, and when they start cutting their staff ratios, then the state can put them out of business.
Correct.
And the state cuts them out of business. We have fewer nursing home beds that cater for an increasing number of senior citizens.
Correct.
So, folks, what Bill and I are talking about today is something that we're going to try and do a better job of explaining to you through our some of our media outlets in the hometown news. Hopefully, we will have an entree back into Florida today, but we'll be working closely with Mr. Johnson's office to try to do a better job of explaining to our public at large just what is happening, what is not happening, and we'll try to give you enough information so that you can be an informed, educated person about whether you want to believe or not believe what you read in the paper. And an article that deals directly with that is an article that's in Florida today about community development block grant funding. There are parts of the article that are accurate. There are many parts of the article that are not accurate. And, it's sad because if the federal government gives local governments money to spend, the local government pays a certain share of that money along with the federal government. It's not either one or the other. It's a dual responsibility. But if the local entity mismanages part of the money, or part of the program anyway, then means then that the national monies could be done away with. And what does that happens? Then the nonprofit organizations lose funding on which they're very dependent. We have been privileged to read many articles in the recent weeks about community-based funding or operations, money that's given by the county commissioners, and it's a very misunderstood funding source. They like to believe that it's strictly just seniors. That's not true at all. It helps all kinds of nonprofit organizations. There are organizations that serve the needy elderly and serve needy children. So what Bill and I have tried to do is to explain some of the things and some of the back and forth relationship. In a little bit we got left, Bill, you might want to make a comment about the budget bill.
Basically, I had that down, and one of the things they were looking at cutting, and they had a cut from the budget this year, right? You keep cutting your income means you have to keep cutting your budget.
Your budget.
Correct. And so it's no wonder that, when you cut your income year over year, you have less income. So what they were cutting or looking at cutting this year was if you are in a nursing home on Medicaid, you're allowed to have $105 keep of your income for personal needs, but the rest of your income would go to the nursing home. And one of the proposals wanted to cut that back to $35, which is what we were like a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I remember $50.
Yeah. So that I think has gone away. And from what I hear, they've reached an agreement on the budget. They're going to extend the session until next Monday so that they can have the 72-hour cooling off period required by law. But I think they've pretty much worked all the kinks out of it.
Does it look like our Medicaid fundings and Department of Elder Affairs money funding and Alzheimer's money will stay about the same?
Do not know the answer to that.
You don't know the answer to that?
No.
I do know that on a national level, according to the paperwork that you sent me, that the National Institute of Health will be receiving this year, under President Trump's budget, will be receiving something like $1.3 billion at the National Institute of Health for Alzheimer's research, and that is the most money that's ever been put into the budget to help dementia and Alzheimer's patients. That's the most.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, that is great, because the last I remember it was $615 million, which means they've more than doubled the money in the last several years. So some of that is coming to President Obama. President Trump has upped the ante quite a bit. And I firmly believe that we get into this fear factor about what we're going to cut Medicaid and everything. I just don't see it happening. I really don't. I think that to do away with the Older American Act money, cut out community development block grant funds, and I think that our legislators are smarter than that if they want to stay in office.
We hope.
We hope.
We hope.
You're right. You're right. But there's just a lot, folks, that you need to read some of the articles that will be coming out, because when we reduce nursing home staff, it means that the homes aren't operated as safely as they should be. Right, Bill?
Correct.
And if Congress has done a lot of good things, but on a local level, we don't realize that. Local funding is extremely important to nonprofits. Nonprofits are not very few. Nonprofits are very large. Some are large, but most are operate on a small budget, do a lot of good things with a very small amount of money. And so when you act to take away community-based funding for operations like that, you hurt a lot of people. Could hurt a lot of people. And you see people like that in your office.
Yes, I see people like that every day.
You had a comment before the show started. Remember about what are you seeing? The people are even less prepared for retirement. You can run in a minute. I'll give you 30 seconds.
Basically, I'm seeing less people with pensions and assets prepared for retirement. 2008, the Great Recession really clobbered a lot of people.
Okay.
And subsequently, we were seeing people who are less prepared for those years.
Okay, thanks, Bill, and thank you. And I hope you've enjoyed listening to what Bill and I have talked about today, folks. If you've got a question, call Kay at 473-7770. See you next week. Bye-bye.